All right, so welcome you all to the VUS TESOL Webinars 2021. My name is Han, and I'll be proud to be your host today. As some of you may know, the annual VUS TESOL conference is an expected event that attracts thousands and hundreds of teachers from inside and outside Vietnam to come and share their teaching methods. However, due to COVID-19, it's been very unlikely for us to organize the event offline since last year. But also, thanks to COVID-19, this free webinar has been held to cater an even larger number of teachers and created more convenience in terms of commuting and location, especially for faraway teachers. That's why we are more than happy and proud to make it happen again this year. We hope that with the participation of ELT experts and invited speakers from well-known publishing houses such as Cambridge Assessment English, Cambridge University Press, eFuture, Macmillan Education, Publications, National Geographic Learning, Oxford University Press, StudyCat, and the US, the webinars will provide you with the most updated ELT trainings and practical teaching methods and techniques so that you can teach your class more effectively. Okay, but before we start, may I take some minutes to gladly announce the winners of our previous webinar lucky draw. These winners were randomly selected among those who completed the feedback after the webinar. Let me just now show you the name of the winners on the screen, okay? 1 second, I'm gonna stop share it, and I'm gonna share this one. Can you see this, the share screen that I've just got up of the 10 winners? Okay, so you can see your name up in here. So congratulations to the 10 lucky winners. You will be each receiving OUP dictionaries for learners of English. The winners are Ms. Nguyễn Ngọc Phương Trinh, Ms. Bùi Phạm Như Trang, Ms. Phạm Huỳnh Minh Thảo, Ms. Nguyễn Ngọc Yến Xuân, Ms. Lê Thanh Nhàn, cô Lê Thanh Nhân, Ms. Nguyễn Thị Thảo Nguyên, Ms. Thái Hoàng Kim Phụng, Mr. Trương Tín Lập, Ms. Võ Thị Thanh Lan, and Ms. Trịnh Kim Cang. I hope. So congratulations again to these winners. And those who haven't been given a chance to win the prizes, no worries. We'll still have several webinars ahead. And there will be prizes in each webinars whenever you finish our survey at the end of the webinars. Okay, so just take your time. So those who are the winners will be reached by VUS or even the sponsor, and we will contact you for the prize receipt. So please check your email regularly. All right, thank you. Now let's get back to our main content today. I won't keep you any longer, I promise. Let's join me now to welcome Mr. Derek Spafford from Macmillan, who is going to deliver an interesting talk entitled, How Can I Create Culture of Thinking in My ELT Classroom? The Art of Visual Thinking Routines. Please be informed, attendees, that we will have the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Also, during that time, I'll send you the links to complete a survey about this webinar and to download your certificate of participation. Now let's start our webinar today. Over to you, Derek.
Many thanks, Ms. Han. Can everybody hear me okay and see me okay? Lovely. Great. Well, welcome to this webinar today. I will be presenting this webinar on visible thinking routines. And I'm very, very happy to be back here at VUS TESOL. I'd like to just start by thanking the team there for organizing the webinars. This is my 5th time at VUS TESOL, and it's a real highlight of my year. I really look forward to it. So I'm delighted to be back again. I'd also like to quickly thank the Macmillan team in Vietnam for supporting me and making sure these events run smoothly. So a big thanks out to Miss Quinn and the team there as well. So let me start by sharing my screen. And just quickly check, you can all see my screen fine. Okay, lovely. All right. Let me just move things around a bit. Since I shared my screen has moved around slightly. So just bear with me for a second. There we go. Okay, so there we go. Yeah, there's the title. This is what we're going to look at today. We've only got about 50 minutes and we'll have a Q&A as well. So we'll get through things. While we go through it, I will be asking you to participate in the chat box. So please feel free to add any questions or give me your thoughts. And we will have a Q&A at the end, of course. So if you want to wait till then that's fine too. A little bit about Macmillan Education. So we work with educators across the world. We work in ELT, we work in schools. So by that, I mean, we work in curriculum, so other subjects like science and maths. And we also work in higher education. And one of our most famous publications I have right here with me is, oh, you can't see it because of the background. It's Alice, oh, there we go. No, there you go. Alice in Wonderland, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is probably our most famous publication. Has anybody read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland? I imagine there's lots of people out there who have, yes. Well, I must tell a lie, I haven't actually read it myself, but that's why I have the book with me now, and I will be reading it very soon. Anyway, today, before we begin, I'm going to start with an entry task. Before we have any lesson, or particularly online, it's always a good idea to have some kind of task. So your entry task is to find your materials that you need. So you'll need a pen and pencil. You need something to write on. You need the handout. Now the handout you can find at the link here, or you can scan the QR code and you will go to a shared folder and you can access the handout. Now I'll also paste it into the chat box so that you can access it from there as well. Give me a second. There it is. It's in the chat box now. So if you want to get it from there as well, you can. The handout is there really for you to follow the session. And I would encourage you not to jump too far ahead while you look at the handout. Try to go through the session as we go through it and follow it directly. I know you'll probably want to jump ahead, but if you can keep to the same pace, it will be helpful. We also have some sample materials in the folder. So let me share the folder link with you so that those who can't scan the QR can access the folder. Just give me 1 second. Here's a link to the actual shared folder. And now you can access the sample materials that I'm going to look at today to help me explain about visible thinking routines. So you can access them if you want to at the end of the session, because I will have the samples on the screen anyway. And if you can bring along a smile with you, that would be great as well. I will do my best to stay happy and to stay energized. But if you feel that my energy is dropping or my smile is gone, then please just put it in the chat box. Okay. So please check you have everything, and then I will get going. Okay. So the first thing we're going to look at is our agenda. We're going to look at 3 areas. We're going to look at what are visible thinking routines. We're also going to look at why they are useful. So why are they important? And we're going to look at how we can implement them in our classrooms, whether that is online or face-to-face. Yep, I can copy that right away. I'll keep pasting it as we go along, and you'll see it on the slides as well. I've kept it in the slides. So before we begin, let's have a go at one of our thinking routines. So let's have a look at thinking routine 1. We're probably going to do, if we have time, we'll do 5 routines, 5 thinking routines. But let's start off with a thinking routine. And this is called, what do you think it's called? It is. It's called See. Oh, it's See, Think, Wonder is coming up, but this one is something else. We've got Think, Question, and Explore. Okay, so this is the title of the routine that we're going to examine at the moment. So the first routine we will look at, I'm going to give you some questions. So the first question says, what do you think you know about visible thinking routines? All right, so what do you know about visible thinking routines? Can you let me know in the chat box? If you don't know anything, then that's fine, because that's why you're here, right? But I'd like you to tell me, what do you think you know about thinking routines at this moment? Okay, Chris, yeah, many contexts, that's true. All right, they can be used in mind mapping. You're going to see some mind mapping in a moment. Used for brainstorming, good for young learners, yes, Brady. Visualize your thinking, it's in there, isn't it? It's in the title. In your mind and remembering and guessing. Okay, so I'd encourage you to complete the handout as you have. As we go through, I'm not going to answer these questions just yet, because I think I can let you answer the questions as we go through the PowerPoint. Next question is to think about, what questions do you have about visible thinking routines? So our topic is visible thinking routines. So what do you think you know? What questions do you have? Now you can put these in the chat box now, but I would encourage you to write these on your handout or on a piece of paper. And then at the end of the session, when we have the Q&A, if I haven't already answered them, then I will answer them then. Very good question, Andrew. Why should it be applied? So this is a good question to ask. And then the next, why should we use them? Yes, okay, these are great questions. Thank you. Keep them coming. But as I said, I'm going to answer them as we go through the session. And then the last one, what does the topic make you want to explore? So what do you think you know? What questions do you have? And then in the future, what might you want to explore? Now, hopefully, one of the ideas of today's session is to get you to think about to present these routines to you, and then for you to go away and look at them and think about how you can use them with your students in your context. So hopefully you will be doing more exploring after the session today. So this is an example of a thinking routine, a visible thinking routine. By asking you to complete these questions, I can see what you are thinking. So let's now look in detail at what visible thinking routines are. And I've got a really nice closed text. So spend a couple of, or maybe 1 minute, spend 1 minute and try and fill in the gaps. Now I've made it a little bit easier for you because I've given you the first letter of the missing words, but can you fill in the gaps? I'll give you 1 minute. If you want to write them in the chat box, you can. If you want to write them on your handout, that's fine too. I'll get that URL in the handout, excuse me, in the handout box right now. And I'll keep posting it as we go through, just in case we have any people that have come a bit late. So another 30 seconds. I've got lots of answers coming in. I've got think is one of them. Hopefully that's one of the answers, isn't it? It's all about thinking. Specialized, special, questions. All right. Let's have a quick look then and see if your answers are correct. So visible thinking routines, or VTR, is a sophisticated name for a simple concept. Yes, actually. Sets of questions or sequences of steps which get students thinking. Okay, some of you got that right for sure. About a topic while providing the opportunities to speak, to work together, and to share ideas. So this lovely paragraph from an excellent article on One Stop English which you can see the link to there. The handout has all the links available, so you can go to the bottom of the handout and see the link. But this is a really nice, simple way of describing VTRs. But what I like about this is it illustrates the 4 C's. Now, can you tell me which of the 4 C's in this description do you think is being targeted? So we've got thinking, of course. So let's say that's Rill has just said thinking. Let's say that's critical thinking. Yes. Creativity. I agree with creativity. I think you need creativity when you're coming up with ideas. Communication, obviously, because there you have the speak element. And then fun, yes, the collaboration of working together. So this very nice description tells me quite a lot about what the visible thinking routines are supposed to do. Now, they're not just about the 4 C's, and I will give you some more examples of what they're about in the next slide or two. A bit of background into where they come from. So visible thinking routines they're flexible, research-based frameworks from Harvard University. And they're designed really to get students to increase their intellectual development. So that's quite a lofty idea, isn't it? But really, it's all about building a classroom where students are thinking, building their thinking skills, and obviously achieving better results because of that. Their routines are very short and they're easy to learn, and they help extend students and deepen their thinking. And it's great for teachers because you get to see how students are thinking, what they're thinking about, not just their answers, but how they actually get to the answer. You can ask them questions. You can ask yourself questions about your students. Are students explaining things to one another? Are they offering creative ideas? And are they brainstorming, which was mentioned in the chat, and debating plans? And what they also do is they develop discussion skills. They encourage children, they encourage teenagers, they encourage adults to talk to each other and find out what other people are thinking about as well. And you will see in one of the routines, they also, I think, encourage empathy as well as socio-emotional learning as well. And there's the link to the Harvard website. This is going to be, if you're interested in visible thinking routines, this is going to be your go-to site. It's got loads and loads of resources that you can look at and find information about the routines and what the routines can do for you and your students. So I really recommend after today's session, you go and explore. So we've looked at the what's very briefly. Let's look now, again, briefly at the why. So again, if you come late and you need the handout, you can access it with the QR code. But what I wanted to do myself when I was developing this session, I wanted to come up with a mind map to really organize my own thinking about visible thinking routines. Now, mind maps are not, from what I can see, actually, I haven't looked at every routine, but they're a different way of thinking and brainstorming, not really part of the visible thinking routine framework, but it was useful for me to look at this. So I've got some gaps here, and I would like you to listen to what I'm going to say and fill in the gaps as we go along. So we're going to start at the top here with enhance. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but we've got enhance at the top here, and the gap to the top right is understanding. So visible thinking routines, VTRs, they really enhance understanding by going deeper into the process of thinking. When we go deeper into the process of thinking, we're exploring the content more deeply. We're not just trying to get understanding from, say, a comprehension question. Who was the person? What were they doing? We're actually trying to think about why they were doing things, and maybe thinking about it from a personal point of view, if you agree with it. So this deeper understanding of the content is enhanced. We also have content learning. I should state right now, I imagine, and I'm going to ask you in a minute what your context is, but I imagine we're all ELT teachers, but even if you teach maths, science, physics, any subject, I think you can implement visible thinking routines into these subjects. And particularly if you're an art teacher, you will see lots of avenues that you can use visible thinking routines with art lessons. And obviously we have CLIL lessons in our content language integrated learning in a lot of our course books now, and I think they are ideally suited for teaching CLIL. They are fun and easy to implement, so students enjoy using them because they're simple, they're easy to follow, and they challenge students. They get them to think in different ways. They have to follow the framework, they have to follow the questions, and it gets them doing things differently. They are easy to implement. As a teacher, this is a very important thing, right? You are all, I imagine, I don't think I've ever met a teacher that's not too busy. So they are very easy to implement. The only thing that really requires preparation is selecting the correct routine for the purpose, and then probably thinking about the language that students need in order to achieve that routine. So when they answer a question, such as what do you think about the topic, you might need to think about what that answer is and help them be able to formulate that answer. Or what can you see? You might need to think about the vocabulary that they're going to be looking at and help them understand that. So these are the kind of things you'll be thinking about as teachers. If you have a course book, like I'm going to show you in a minute, that implements or embeds visible thinking routines, then you don't even need to worry about that because it's all taken care of. They're motivating and engaging. There's often a personalization that goes with thinking or these thinking routines, asking them what they think. And this word engaging, we have seen a lot in the last year or two. It's always a challenge for teachers to motivate and engage students, particularly online. And I think this could be a good solution for you because, as I said, it's very highly personalized, asking students what they think about something, about a topic. As I mentioned, they're integral to two of our products, which I'm going to show you samples of in a moment. And they also promote different aspects of learning. So we have deeper learning here. So as I mentioned with the understanding, by asking questions, they're going really deep into understanding the text and their own learning. And then we have the 4 C's, which we mentioned. So promotion of those is key. And then finally, back up to enhance, we have enhancing teaching techniques. So I hope that after today, you will have some great ideas about how you can use these and then make your lessons more interesting for your students and yourself, and therefore, develop as a teacher. And learners' attitudes towards thinking and learning are enhanced. And this is a key area, I think. If we get our students to start thinking at an early age about their learning and about how thinking is important, and looking at different points of view and putting themselves in the shoes of other people, I think it's a really helpful tool, not just for their academic careers, but for their personal lives as well. I firmly believe that, and I'll show you a really good example, I think, of how we can get students to think differently like that. So that is the why. Now, I have some questions about your context. So, do we need to know what learners are thinking? Yes or no, and why not? What do you think about this question in your context? So, Richard, why do you think we need to know? What's the reason why? Okay. Esperanza says to help them better. Okay, lesson plans and curriculum. Okay, so to guide the learning, yeah. Arouse their interest. Scaffolding is something we're going to come up. That's going to come up, yeah. And I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier in terms of the preparation. Your preparation is that scaffolding. Okay, good, yeah. Yeah, I would, if I was to answer this, I would say yes, for sure. I think it really provides us with more information about our students and how we can help develop our students. I think it's a key tool for that. Next question. In your context, in your teaching context, whether that be teaching whatever level of students you're teaching, what evidence do you have for your learners' thinking? And how do your learners demonstrate their thinking? So how do you know that your learners are thinking? Involvement, the behavior, degree of accuracy. Okay, good. Thank you. You make questions, answer the questions. Okay. So quite a few people are actually saying that the output, the product, the output such as answering questions, doing worksheets, facial expressions, are giving them evidence. But I think if you're looking at the answers to questions, that's more of a product. They're producing something to show you their thinking. But thinking really is a process. It's not a product. So while these examples are definitely showing evidence of learners thinking, we don't really know whether their responses that they give you are actually evidence of thinking in the correct way. So what I mean by this is, how do you know if a student gives you an answer to a question, how do you know that they've actually thought about it rather than copying from their friend, guessing, memorizing the answer beforehand? There are many different ways that they can show evidence of learning, but it's very difficult for them to see evidence, or for you to see evidence of thinking. So that's what today is all about, is to give you some ways of providing evidence of thinking and how to make it visible. So enough of the what, enough of the why. Let me show you now how you can make thinking visible and therefore see that process of thinking rather than the product of thinking. So here's the how. You got this. So routine number 2. This is our second routine. And it's called, can you guess? What's see, think, wonder, yes, okay. Good. Yeah, we've got see, think, and wonder. So you might have seen me flash that image up. So what I'm going to do is get you now to give me some ideas. So it's a very famous painting by Edvard Munch, the Norwegian painter. So what can you see? What can you see in this picture? Yes. Oh, panic. Scary goal. A bridge. Good. River. 3 people. Yep. What about the colors? We've got fire in the background. Yeah. Tell me the colors that you can see. Gloomy colors. Fiery, dark, red, blue, brown. Yeah. Sunset. Okay, good. So you can see lots and lots of things. Did anybody mention I think someone mentioned the bridge. Yeah, there's the bridge. There's a man on the bridge. There's other 2 people. Can you see the boats? There's also some boats. All right, good. Now, next question. What do you think? What do you think about this picture? You feel it's unreal? You think it's scary? You think he's anxious? Creepy, interesting, dull. Okay. So there's a lot of people saying that's scary and creepy and dangerous. All right, so good. Now, as a teacher, I might be asking you, what makes you say that? What makes you think that? Why do you think that? And asking questions, follow-up questions to delve a bit deeper into the thinking. But the last question is, what do you wonder? What do you wonder? I wonder. I wonder what's happened, why the man is scared. What did the man see? Good. Where is he going? Good. Okay, so you can see now we've gone from looking at a picture, describing it, to actually looking at the details of the picture and wondering, the sky is so red and blue, it's like red and green and yellow. I wonder why. I wonder why the sky is like that. Fire, possibly, yeah. Why is it afraid? So lots and lots of things coming out as to why. And this simple thinking routine brings about lots of different results. So let's look at why we should use a thinking routine like this. So we're talking about really careful observation. So think, wonder really encourages children and teenagers and adults. You see, I'm going across all the levels. I'm not sticking just with any level. I want you to really consider this. But it stimulates curiosity. And it gets them to make predictions. It really ties in really nicely with kind of like a pre-reading activity, or preparing students to be ready about what they are about to read. When would they use it? So you use it for this reason. So when we want to look at the way that something is, or why something looks the way it does. All right. So we're getting people to really look at this image, but we could use this for other things as well. I just think it works beautifully for an image to stimulate interest and find out what students already know. So you could do this with an artwork, as I did. You could do with an artifact, an image. An artifact is a thing, right? A realia. Or you could also do it with a topic. So if you have a topic of your lesson, you could get students to discuss that, like we did at the start of today's session. I would encourage students really to back up what they say with reasons. So when they tell me what they can see, I want to know, or what they think. I want to know why they think that. So I would be asking them questions to get them to think about it in more detail. So those why questions are really important. What makes you say that are really important. And I think it really depends on you as a teacher how you would use them, but you could use them as a class, so a whole class, as you as a teacher showing the picture and eliciting ideas. You could put them into pairs, you could put them into groups. If you're teaching online, you can put them into breakout rooms. There's many different ways that you can do this, and it's adaptable and flexible for all. So let's have a look at what we can do in practice. I'll show you some examples of See, Think, Wonder in actual course books. So here we have a beautiful image. This is from a book called Global Stage, and this is the literacy book, and really helps to stimulate curiosity and gets them thinking critically about what's being predicted. So every level has an opening lesson and has an image, and in level 1 they will see, think and wonder and learn and basically practice this thinking routine and get it down throughout the whole book. So this introduces the first reading lesson in the literacy book. The language has already been covered in the language book, of course. Then we follow up with these really great, this is what we talked about earlier in terms of scaffolding. So it's important to scaffold students' responses by asking follow-up questions, but also to give them model answers. These help the students, it guides them through the process of the routine and provides meaning with the content. Also helps with communication, of course, which is part of the skills that we're trying to develop, and also lets other students see different points of views. You can see, as I said, the sample answers. And I think if you're doing this, this is with level 1 of a primary book, and you might be thinking about the level of English here. And I think we can also consider doing thinking routines in the learner's own language. I think that is also at times very useful, because the actual thinking skill, the process of thinking, is going to be transferable across the languages. So even though this is we're teaching English, if we can get them to think in the same way in their own language, it will transfer across when they are then ready to use the language. We then follow up with another activity. This is another thinking activity where they're drawing and sharing. And then we introduce the actual reading text that they're going to look at and predictions of the reading text. And here's an example of the reading text that they're going to then practice the language and the thinking skills throughout this reading text. And then finally, at the end of the unit, they will have a think together activity. So the thinking skills are developed all the way through and not just in one occasion at the start of the lesson. So I think it's a nice example of how we would use this in an ELT teaching context. Let's now have a look at routine number 3. Now, routine number 3 is a bit more challenging in terms of the images. Does anybody have any guess about what they think routine number 3 is without looking at your handout? Jimmy, did you look at your handout? Never mind. Yeah, routine number 3 is to claim, to support, and to question. So we start this routine by making a claim about a topic. So maybe some explanation, maybe some interpretation, some aspect of a topic. It might be a book report. It might be something that you've all read, and you have to give your opinion or your claim about what you've read. It could be a image as well that you've just seen. So my claim that I'm going to make is visible thinking routines promote the 4 C's and deeper thinking. So that's my claim. That's my thought. That's my interpretation of what I'm looking at today. After that, I need to identify some support for my claim. It's not enough, is it, to make a claim about something if you can't support what you're saying. So I'm going to support this with, and I do apologize, I added this a bit late, but it says, research from the Harvard University website and looked at evidence to support my claim. I have used VTRs in my class and seen students practice using the 4 C's. Okay, so there's my support for this claim. And then the last part, the question that I have. So I've thought about it, and then I'm going to think further now. How do I need to develop in this area? So this is a key question for now, isn't it? So how can I use them in online classes? So what are the other things that my claim has brought up, as it raised? So what's left? What do I need to then go ahead and learn more about after I've identified what I want to say, I've supported it, but now I need to question it. I need to think about it. This is great for today's age, when there is so much fake news going around, that if you say the same news that you've heard without following up and checking your facts and providing evidence to support your claims, then you might be spreading the same fake news. So this is really important for today's age. So let's have a look at the reasons why this kind of thinking is important. So I'll let you have a quick read of that. So this routine, I think, really encourages the process of working out the reasoning, the thinking behind what you want your students to say, or what your students want to say. Not what you want your students to say. That wouldn't be thinking, right? What your students want to say. So students have an opinion of something and they support it with evidence. Now I'm thinking claim support questions probably better for the older age groups. For teenagers, for young adults and adults, but maybe with primary learners, you could adapt it and support them with this. They might need a lot of help with this. When can you use it? So yeah, for eliciting ideas. So this could be really good with poems, for example, when poems have a lot of different meaning. that are associated with them. So you might have read a poem to your class, or they can read it together, and then you can all decide on what you think the poem is telling you, and then come up with this routine to provide evidence. Anything that's open to sort of interpretation or explanation is really useful for this. Really good with pieces of art. Again, it would be good with the Scream, that painting, although that painting is quite direct. I mean, pretty much everybody agrees that he looks panicked and scared. So something a bit more subtle. But I really like these for IELTS questions. So I don't know if any of you have taught IELTS or are teaching IELTS, but there's in the IELTS exam, there is a writing task 2 question, which is a discursive essay. And what I think you could do with this is take what a discursive essay, where you have to look at both sides of an argument, when you can adapt them like I have done here. Okay, we'll come to that in a moment, but you can adapt them like I've done here and make them one side of an argument, and then have people or have students look at the reasons to support these arguments, to support these claims, and then to ask questions about the claims. And what I would do with this kind of thing is I would maybe get students to, on the whiteboard, if you're teaching online, you can still have whiteboards, but I get students to put up their claims. So exercise is the key to good health. And then students would then come up with ideas. So using Post-it notes or online Post-it notes, or even in a chat box or brainstorming in a breakout room, is come up with ideas to support. So they put their Post-it notes on the board and then follow up with questions. Now, what you could also do with this is you can, if you're teaching online, is get students to create documents like I did, that I've shared with you, that they can add to maybe a Google Sheet or a Google Doc. But what you can also do, if you're teaching face-to-face, this is perfect, is have students have their own piece of paper, they write their own claim, they put their 2 columns together, and then they pass it to the person to the left, and the person to the left then writes something to support it, or writes a question, or can't think and passes it on. And then it comes all the way around in the group, and they will have lots of ideas to support and lots of questions to then find out more about their own thinking and their own understanding about the subject. And then that then builds into actually completing maybe an essay on the pros and the cons of exercise being the key to good health. So it's a really neat idea, I think, that you can use to help with those kind of thinking routines when you're thinking about the pros and cons of things. And as I said, I think I've just mentioned that there, to make it a whole class project type lesson, yeah, with everyone sharing ideas with each other. That's important in terms of the collaboration. So let's have a look in practice how we can do this. So this is a copy of Gateway to the World, which is a secondary course book, a secondary level course book. It's brand new for this year. And it's very exciting to be able to look at this, because I think having these visual thinking routines embedded is really wonderful. Here you can see clearly the aims of the lesson, and it's signposted for you and for the learners. The input that they receive is with these really super motivating videos, really engaging for learners. And we have the input is then tested through the comprehension questions, traditional true-false comprehension questions, before moving on to our specific thinking routines. Scaffolding, we mention again. So here you will see in 4A, there's lots of scaffolding by giving students ideas already about the task at hand. So the task is to come up with improving transport systems in a city. And they're given ideas here, but also encouraged to think of their own ideas as well. And then we actually come to the task. So the claim, so they make a claim. They have to provide support for that claim, some logical evidence. And then they think of some questions so that they're ready to answer these questions if anybody wants to to talk about their claim and maybe find out more about what they're saying. So this process, you can see, is works really well into a course, into a secondary level course. There's loads of support for teachers. So if you as a teacher wanted to do this routine, everything is here in the teacher's guide, taking you through the lesson and giving you tips and ideas about the kind of language that students are going to be using and to be ready for that. Okay, routine number 4. I know I'm probably going a little bit fast, but I think I'm okay for time, so I'll keep going. So routine number 4 is, and you're probably looking at your sheets. Absolutely, Taufam. Yeah, they can be definitely adapted. Routine number 4 is called step inside. Perceive, know about, care about. All right. So this is our 4th routine. And I think this is probably my favorite routine, actually. I really like this. So what we're asking here is, what can the person think? What can the person or thing perceive? Now, perceive might be higher level language for some learners. So I've just put that into a bracket as what can they see. And for my younger learners, I would definitely not use the word perceive. I'd change it to my level of students. So what can the person think, a person or thing perceive? What might they know about or believe? And what might the person or thing care about? All right, so we're trying to put ourselves into the same position as somebody or something. Now, to sum up what I think this routine covers, I'm going to use a quote. Has anybody read this book? If you haven't, I thoroughly recommend it. I just read it about a month ago. The first time. I know most people read this book at school. I think it's on the reading list in American schools in particular. It's wonderful. It's a beautiful book, and it's based on this guy Atticus Finch, who is a lawyer, and he is explaining to his 9-year-old daughter. I think she's about 9. It doesn't really say, but he's explaining to her. She has an opinion about somebody, and he's trying to explain to her not to judge too quickly about somebody. All right, and he says, consider from his point of view until you climb into his skin and walk around in it. Now, it's quite visual, that phrase, but it's also really easy to understand and very important. So if you haven't read it, I really recommend you do. And the movie is actually amazing too. So have a look at the movie. So the reason, why would we do this? Well, I've just given you a quote, I think, which sums up beautifully why. But I think this can really lead to building our creativity of what we're studying. And I think exploring different viewpoints can really open up possibilities for creativity. So, for example, after this activity, you might think about, say, if it's somebody who, like the man in the Scream poster, if you put yourself in his shoes and try and think about what he can see, you really may be able to understand why he's panicking so much, or why he's so scared, or why he's screaming. If you think about maybe looking at a poem and about why the writer has written the poem, so you put yourself into the shoes, into the skin of the poet, and really try and find out what the poet is trying to say, so from their point of view. And you would have seen, it says to try to imagine things. Now imagine, for example, you have an inanimate object, which I will show you in a moment, and you can maybe have students imagine that the object is a live thing. So for example, it might be a sword on a battlefield that's been left on a battlefield, or an old shoe that's been left in a field, left by the owner, and the students can imagine what the shoe is feeling, what the shoe can see. So they're looking at it from a different point of view. I would use it, yeah, as a problem-solving brainstorm activity. if any of your students have any problems that they'd like to discuss, this is a really neat way of helping people with problems. You can make abstract things come to life. And as I said, great for that creativity and helping develop those higher order thinking skills. So I'd show you a quick idea here of how you can do it. So this is from Skillful, an adult book, which is our listening and speaking book. We also have the reading and writing that runs parallel with it. And you might be looking at this Native American Indian and asking him, or just Native American, I should say, and asking him why, or asking what he can see, what he knows about, and what he cares about. If you want to, you could also think about this beautiful stick that he has here as well, and maybe look at it from the stick's point of view. Has traveled with this Native American all throughout his life, and the things that the stick has seen and places that it's been. You could also use it for looking at issues of the day. So here we're looking at cyberbullying. You have a conversation between a parent and a team, and students have to think about what they're looking at from the parent's point of view, looking at from the teenager's point of view, and really getting inside and thinking about why they're saying this, why they're thinking like this, what they care about, as you can see here, what they know about, and then also teaching that lesson of cyberbullying to maybe to your teenage learners as well. And in practice, you can see it here with global stage again. So this is a really beautiful, nice image. Children have to decide whether it's safe to go this way or risky. What can you see? The questions that follow. So they have to choose the person or the thing, and you can see the scaffolding here. Choosing the boy with his mother, he can see, and the students would give you some ideas here. Again, lots of support and follow-up. Where they're thinking and discussing, and then maybe even personalizing this, putting themselves in that, obviously in the shoes of somebody else is really personal. And lots of support for you as teachers. So here you can see a full lesson plan on the thinking routine itself, giving you example conversations, what you can expect students to say, what vocabulary they're going to need, and then also a handout that they can use as a graphic organizer to help them again organize their own thinking. Okay, now we're coming to the last routine. Now the last routine is actually more homework for you. So we're getting close to the end of my presentation today. And we have a compass. So this last routine is called compass points. Now you normally start with north, south, east, and west, but we're going to start with the east. And it's excited. East means excited. What excites you about the idea? What's the upside? What's the good thing about this? And I want you to think about this. And on your handout, I want you to write some ideas about visible thinking routines. So what excites you about visible thinking routines? What's the upside of visible thinking routines? If you want to put them in the chat box, you can, but I really want you to do this for homework. The west side is worrisome. So what do you find worrisome? What do you find, what are you worried about using this idea? What would be the downside of visible thinking routines? Are there any downsides? I'm sure that you'll find some. And I hope that you can then find out what you need to know. So the north is the need to know about the idea. So what additional information will help you evaluate things? Now, don't forget, in the handout, you will see the link to the Harvard project, Project Zero, and there are loads of resources to help you if you do have any worries or downsides. And you can also contact me, because I'm going to help share my email address with you at the end of the session. And then finally, number 4 is the south. So number 4 is, what's your current stance here? So what are you going to do moving forward? If you like visible thinking routines, great. How are you going to move forward with them now? What are you going to do in order to take it forward with your students? So the last one, routine 5, is really good. to flesh out an idea. So hopefully to flesh out visible thinking routines today and help you evaluate it and see if you think it'd be useful for your classrooms. I really hope it is, and I hope it's been useful. It works well, yes, when you're exploring different sides. If you're using it in a classroom, this kind of compass point activity, you will need to model, and you will really need to take, I think, the stages carefully and slowly. With any of these thinking routines, you have to give the students time to think. You can't just go through it quickly like I've done today. You give them time to share, give them time to talk, to research, and really go in depth. Today, we've gone very quickly. I'm showing you the routine so you can use them, but remember to give your students a lot of time to help them with their thinking. And I will finish with this wonderful quote that you can read, and just give me a little bit of time to have a drink and get ready for any Q&A that we're going to have. The last line I really like. It says, this changes who they are as learners. But I firmly and honestly believe, particularly with the step inside, that we're not changing who they are as learners, just changing who they are as learners, we're changing who they are as people as well. If we can get students to think about other points of view and think about other people's feelings and what they might be thinking when they're making a decision or when they're acting in a certain way, we can really help them. So that brings me to the Q&A. So we have two surveys for you, actually. Miss Han mentioned the VUS survey that you're going to be doing, or you're hopefully going to do in order to win a prize. But if you want a double chance of winning a prize, you can also do this survey here, and I will put this in the chat box. This is our own internal survey. And it really, really helps us to give us feedback about further sessions in the future that you want to see. And we'd be really, really grateful if you could complete this survey for us as well. So 2 surveys, 2 chances of winning some wonderful prizes. And I'll pop that in the chat box now. So we would really welcome you to complete the survey if you can. And I'll now take any questions that you might have. So I'll go to the Q&A. And the first question, now I do apologize, it's very difficult for me to pronounce some of the names. So the first question again, I'll just read the question out. How can these all routines apply in one lesson? How often do we need to repeat the routines? I think the answer to this question would be to I would use one routine in the lesson, and for example the See, Think, Wonder routine, I would use that at the start of the lesson in order to get students, or the start of the unit, to get students thinking about the topic, thinking about the content of what they're going to be reading about or studying about. But I think you could actually have more than one in a lesson. I think it's up to you how you want to use them. I think the beauty of these thinking routines is their flexibility and their ease of use. So I don't want to say to you, you can only use one in a lesson or you can use all of them. I would say it's up to you. And I know that's not a great answer, but it's probably the best answer. Think about what you want to achieve, what your aim of the lesson is, and see if you can think of a routine that would fit that aim of the lesson. So next one, can you suggest some activities which help the students to practice wondering? Yeah, I mean, this is learner training, isn't it? So I think this is all about your follow-up questions. So I can see a man, I can see a bridge, I can see 2 people, I can see the red sky. I think he's upset. I think it's nighttime. I think it's in a foreign country. And then I wonder. So wonder is the key, isn't it? So this is what we want to try and develop. So I think I would be asking, I would maybe give them examples, and lots of examples to start with. I would model this as much as possible. And I wouldn't worry too much if they're not coming up with their own examples at the start. 1 or 2 to begin with, start small and then build it up. You might want to give them model examples that are really maybe not good examples, and get them to filter out the good examples of wondering, and then the not so good examples of wondering, so that they can be comfortable when it comes to their turn to do it. So that's what I would do. Richard, I'm not going to go back in all the slides, but I will be sharing the PowerPoints with you, or with the team, so you will receive them. And if you want them, you can contact me directly on the email address on the screen. I'm happy to share materials with you, but you will be receiving them as well. Is it popular to apply these 5 routines in overseas study? Yeah, I think it's very popular. I think they're be used quite often, not just in ELT classes, but in all different types of classes. So as I said at the start, these are not just English language teaching ideas. They're used for everything, for maths, for science, for chemistry, for everything. Now, the one about studying psychology, I don't really feel qualified to answer that. I don't really have any knowledge of studying or teaching psychology. So I will leave that for you to explore. All right, this is your the southern point of your compass, maybe even the northern point as well. What do you need to know? Okay, as a new teacher, I would go with the see, think, wonder, the simple routines like that, the core routines that you will see. Yeah, start with those. Even if you want to, with the wonder, you could also drop that. You could just have the see and think, and then build up to the wonder as well. So start with what you think you can do, and build from there. How can a teacher give rewards? Well, in your learning management system, you might have a reward system. And I think there's lots of ways using the Zoom emoticons, but that's kind of, it's a bit different to my presentation today. So I'll leave that for you to find out. Some students don't want to think and apply thinking routines. How can we do this? How can we solve this? Well, that's a case of you showing them how important those thinking routines are. I think, again, you're always going to meet students that are not engaged, that are not motivated. I think if you can apply them to the learner, make them personal, without being, too personal, of course, but giving them personalized questions, and also I think the key is to care about what they say. So record their answers, write them down, and put them on a board, or put them somewhere that everybody can see them, so that you're valuing what they think. I think that's the key. If you ask someone what they think, and that's the thing about doing in a chat like today, where there's lots of people in the chat, very difficult for me to read every question, or every answer. But I think it's very valuable to let a student know that you value their thinking and you value their answer. And if you show them that, you're more likely to get them to then participate. So correction during thinking routines. Now, I would see this kind of thinking routine more as a fluency activity. So I would probably do correction maybe in another, if I'm recording the answers, I might do it separately in another lesson, or at the end of the lesson. I wouldn't correct too much during the thinking routines. I want to develop their thinking skills, their process, not so much the product. But the product is important, so I would record their answers and then look at them on later. So they're not separated from they are separated, sorry, from the thinking routine. So I think that's important to differentiate. All right, well, I've gone over time, so I just want to say thank you for all your questions. If you have any further questions, like I said, you can see my my email address there. So please get in touch. I'm always happy to talk to teachers, talk to yourselves. So yeah, and please complete the survey. It's really important to us that you complete the survey. And as I said, you can win prizes. So thank you so much for your time and have a great Tuesday. And I will hopefully see you again next year.
Thank you, Del, very much for your informative and fruitful presentation, and thank you everybody for your participation. We hope that you enjoy our webinar today, and we will be able to apply the ideas to your teaching practice.
VUS, your English, your future.